to get this live stream going. So hopefully, third time's a charm. I just want to once again mention real quick that I am trying to fundraise right now to be a full time missionary here in Arizona, primarily focusing on abortion mill ministry, but also doing evangelism in different areas, such as just on the street. First Fridays, if you here in Phoenix, you know what First Fridays are at college campuses, strip clubs, pretty much just anywhere that there might be an opportunity to do evangelism. But like I said, primarily focusing on abortion mill ministry. So I have a link in the description that goes to my funding page for the missions organization that I'm with. So if you would please prayerfully consider partnering with me for financial support, either as a one-time gift or as a monthly gift, please go to that link and you can donate there. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Let's go ahead and keep going again with this part two of this Vice News video about the Dobbs decision. I mean, that's kind of what they focus on, but obviously it's just about abortion in general. So let's continue with it right here. I don't think this is exactly where the last video ended, but this was the best I could figure where we left off last time for part one. This will be part two, and it's only live right now on Facebook, but I will upload it later on YouTube and probably Gab.
Abortion. For a lot of people, Kansas is sort of the last place they can go to access this care. Are you concerned that abortion could be outlawed here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think about that every day.
And again, just want to make clear. I mean, all of us who are on the pro-life side, we know this, but just want to make it clear what's being said when she says, "Are you concerned about abortion being outlawed?" What she is saying is, "Are you concerned with murder being outlawed here in Kansas?" Now, obviously, most types of murder in Kansas are illegal, but of course, this one specific kind is still legal. This one specific kind of murder is still legal. But that's what she's asking when she asks, "Are you concerned about abortions being outlawed?" She's asking, "Are you concerned about murder being outlawed?" So let's see what the other lady has to say.
And that could be catastrophic.
How do you expect your clinic will be affected?
It could be catastrophic. Catastrophic if murder is if this particular kind of baby murder is outlawed, it could be catastrophic.
In coming months.
There's going to be kind of this displacement that happens when these very populous areas don't have access to what I consider basic health care.
Again, basic health care. We hear this all the time in reference to abortion, that it's basic health care. And again, just this is just old hat for those of you who've been involved in abortion mill ministry for a while, or for any amount of time really. But just want to make it clear again, pointing out that the taking of a human life, the murder of a baby, is not health care. Murdering a person is not basic health care.
We'll do as much planning as we can, but this clinic has the capacity to see a certain amount of people. It's not nearly going to be enough.
What are pregnant people facing unplanned pregnancies going to do in the South, in the Midwest, who don't have access?
We're looking at a situation where those people won't be able to access it, and then you have this like state mandated forced pregnancy, forced birth.
Forced pregnancy. My friends, there throughout this video, you will see that there is absolutely no concept whatsoever of personal responsibility. That there's no concept, there's no expectation of personal responsibility. No one is forcing these women to be pregnant, okay, and to have a child. That is a decision that they made when they knew that possibility existed when they decided to participate in sex. We all know where babies come from, okay? And that's why I don't know, you never hear anything about personal responsibility. I mean, the reality is, my friends, we live in God's universe, and God has ordained that sex should be within His bounds of marriage between a man and a woman, and He has created us in such a way and commanded us that that bond is also, if at all, as much as depends on them. I mean, of course, obviously you have a situation where some women they just aren't able to have kids; they're not able to get pregnant. But God has commanded that as much as it is possible, that within this or God ordained bond of marriage between a man and woman, that it should be a fruitful bond, and that they should be fruitful and multiply, that they should have children. Right? So obviously we are we're separated by a chasm that cannot be crossed when it comes to the worldviews that we're coming from. Because on the one hand, Christians are coming from the worldview that God has created all things, and that He has created sex to be in the bonds of marriage, and He's created that bond of marriage to be one that bears fruit and is fruitful and multiplies. The other side is I mean, granted, I can't ask either one of these ladies personally, hey, what's your worldview? But if they're not coming completely from, they're certainly very heavily impacted by this secular worldview, where all we are is evolved fish. We're just atoms in motion. And so, yeah, of course, the woman should be able to make herself just like a man, in that men obviously cannot be pregnant, and the woman, and it's an injustice, so to speak, that a woman can get pregnant and can bear children, which a man can't do. And so to solve this supposed injustice of this supposed inequality, we must allow women to be able to murder their children, so that they don't have to, so that there's no question of them having to be pregnant, and so that they can be equal with men who obviously never have the responsibility of carrying the child, because that's not, God didn't design us for that. God designed um, women for that. So there's a chasm between these worldviews, but you'll notice that because they live in God's universe, everything they do, in a sense, shows forth the fact that they know that they live in God's universe. They know the God that created them, and they just suppress that truth and unrighteousness. Well, what are you talking about, Baird? Well, what's so the first video we talked a lot about how the the young lady who got the abortion, how her language indicated that she knew very well that that was a human being, that it was a baby. She kept calling the baby a baby, and showed forth that she knew exactly what she was doing and murdering a child, including that it was a heartbreaking decision, that she cried for days. It was a very difficult decision. That all indicates, along with her use of the word baby, all indicates that she knows exactly what's going on, that she's not a victim. But what we haven't talked about, and what's being assumed throughout this whole video by the pro murder side, the pro choice side, I say pro murder side, by they can call it, if they can call us anti choice and anti, abortion, which I'm fine. I mean, in a sense, I'm fine with those titles. They are accurate. I am against the choice to murder someone. I am anti-abortion. I'm against abortion. But if they can use those, what they consider, or what, I don't know if they'd consider them pejorative terms, but what are meant to be pejorative terms, like meant to be demeaning terms for the other side, then I think it's fair to accurately use the term pro-murder, which is what they're for. If you're pro-abortion, you are pro-murder. If you're pro-choice, what choice are you for when you're talking about abortion? You're talking about being pro the choice of murdering someone else. So that's why I say pro murder. But anyway, what's being assumed by the pro murder side throughout all of this is that these moms have value, that they ought to be able to um, be autonomous in their life choices, that they, and because they have value, because they're valuable, they're persons, they ought to have this freedom. My friends, the value of a person is exactly because they are created in God's image. See, they can't escape living in God's universe where everything that is true precisely because God has made it that way. Every fact that is a fact because God has made it that way. And they can't escape it. Because my friends, if if we were to hold these ladies' feet to the fire and say, hey, be consistent with your worldview, right? There was no purpose in the coming about of humanity. It just so happened that something happened, some kind of physical processes happened, and the universe came to be from from either quantum, how whatever whatever the most current popular explanation is, from quantum vacuums or whatever, from the all matter and energy being uh, in this tight little ball or whatever, and it exploded. But whatever the case, like, the universe came about, but not because there was mind behind it, not because there was purpose behind it, but because it just happened. Whatever, for whatever reason, these physical processes happened, and then we have, and now, so that happened, and then because there happens to be certain, because there happens to this physical process just happened, and now there happens to be physical laws, and so matter, gets, because of gravity, clings to each other, becomes spherical, um, and then eventually, and these smaller spheres are gonna revolve around bigger spheres, because the bigger spheres have gravity, have more of a gravitational pull, and so then you get solar systems, et cetera, et cetera. And these things, there's no purpose behind, there's no mind behind it. This is just happening. This just happens this way. And then eventually, somehow, who knows, but then somehow you go from non-life to life. So to quote Doug Wilson when he talks about the resurrection, right? Everyone believes in life coming from the dead, right? Christians believe that Christ was resurrected from the dead. He came back from the dead. But everyone believes in life from the death, because the secular person believes that there was no life and then life came, right? And we don't know how that happened, but somehow that happened. And then you have evolution, which evolution can only occur once you have something that's complex enough to replicate itself, because you have to have replication before you can have evolution, right? You have to have things replicating in some way before you can have mutations and things like that then become dominant, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and that and of course, that's a mind-boggling level of complexity. Even the simplest thing which is, I think, I don't know if it's bacteria or virus. I don't know what the simplest thing is that can replicate itself. But regardless, whatever that is, you're still talking about a mind-boggling level of complexity that we don't know how we got there, or they don't know how we got there. But then you have evolution, which just happens, and then there just happens to be mutations. But these mutations don't have a there's no mind behind the mutation that's guiding the process. It just happens. And if this mutation that just happened, if it by chance has a something about it that makes the organism better able to survive, then that becomes like a dominant trait that will get passed along. Um, and then, so eventually, of course, then you get to, um, eventually, after a long chain, you get to people. But it's all this unguided process. There's no mind behind it, there's no purpose behind it. It just happened. Okay. So this just happened. Atoms just bang into each other, and eventually you get people who are comprised of just atoms banging into each other. And so why? So then be consistent with your worldview. Why do we? Why? Where's this notion of value in the human? Now you could say arbitrarily. You can say, well, I'm going to assign value to humanity because that's what I want to do. But why then does your desire to assign value to humanity? Why does that obligate anybody else to assign value to humanity or to assign value to this particular group, this particular part of humanity, females, women? Uh, that why does that obligate anybody else to do that same thing? It's just you can say, well, that's what I like, that's what I want, but that doesn't obligate anybody else from having to go along with that. So there's no you've abandoned any their worldview has abandoned any foundation for human value. But because they live in God's world, they carry that out because they know humanity does have value and they act like it and they talk like it. Now they're of course denying value to the baby, but they're ascribing value to the moms because they can't help it because they know intrinsically that because they live in God's universe, they know that there has to be values ascribed. Um, there has to be an objective standard by which they operate. Um, Now they may deny that up and down, but then what are they doing this whole time? They're making objective claims that the side that wants to end abortion, the side that wants to make abortion illegal, what are they doing? They're making objective claims that that is wrong, that they ought not to be able to do that. So now I would guess, now this would just be a pure guess, but I would guess if you were to really, you know, um, push them into a corner and and where they had to answer the question, is there objective morality? My guess would be that they would say no, there's not, which would be consistent with their worldview, but they can't live consistently with that because they are demanding that those who want to end abortion, that those who want to make abortion illegal, they're demanding that they stop those efforts because they are wrong, that they're morally wrong for them to do that, and that they're morally wrong for them to do that because these women have value, and of course, in their distorted thinking, they also believe that these women need to be able to murder their child, need to be able to have abortions. But you don't you your worldview doesn't give you that foundation. Your worldview doesn't give you a foundation for their worldview. Their worldview doesn't give them any sort of foundation for objective morality. It's just atoms banging into each other. Your worldview doesn't give any foundation for human value. There wasn't any purpose in us coming to be. We just happened to come to be. Life just happened to come from non-life. The universe just happened to come to be because of physical process that I'm doing around it. So anyway, so where was I going? Where did I start? Where was I starting when I went down that path? Just to, I guess, just to say, my friends, that this whole video is a demonstration that they are suppressing that truth that they know, and it keeps popping up like we talked about in that analogy, which didn't originate with me. I don't remember where I don't remember where I got it, or and so I can't even tell you begin to guess where it originated from. But that's like that beach ball that you try to keep underwater, but it's gonna rise as soon as your hand slips. It's gonna rise and it's gonna pop out of that water, and that's like the truth that they're suppressing. They try to keep that truth underwater, but their hand keeps slipping and it keeps popping up, and their claims of value to these women, and their claims that it's morally wrong to oppose abortion, um, which you can't get value or objective moral claims from their worldview. To use a Doug. Did I already? I think I quoted Doug Wilson earlier, right? Oh, yeah, about life coming. Everyone believes about life coming to death. Use another Doug Wilson reference in Collision. He said, uh, speaking of Christopher Hitchens, referring to Christopher Hitchens, he said that he keeps trying to get into the Christian car and drive the Christian car into a tree, but he doesn't have any car of his own. I think that I thought that was a wonderful analogy. See, they don't have any car of their own, but they keep borrowing. They borrow what they know to be true about the universe they live in from the Christian worldview, and then they proceed to try to run it into a tree. Um, all right, so let's keep going. I don't. Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to even be reminded what they were talking about by picking up from the context. Oh, they were talking about abortion, murder of the babies being made illegal in Kansas and the surrounding area.
Situation. I mean, I don't see how the maternal mortality rate isn't affected by this. When you don't allow people that are very sick or have dangerous pregnancies to have the option of having an abortion in order to maintain their health or save their.
Okay, so when you're talking about like dangerous, like truly dangerous pregnancies, where there truly is um, a threat to the life of the mother, first of all, they're not handling that at the abortion clinics. Okay, if the mom is really in a situation where her life is in danger, she is not going to the abortion clinic. Now, she may have been told by a doctor, hey, like there's some there's going to be some difficulty with this pregnancy. Like you should just go get the abortion. You should go get an abortion. And so they go to the abortion and they say, well, this doctor told me that my life was in danger. But really, like when you really like look into that, guys, like why, and this and um, you check out Dusty Marshall there's a ministry called the Regular for Christ. Dusty Marshall, him and his wife, they talk. You can go watch their stuff about the doctors telling them that they need to get an abortion because there's something wrong with their babies, and you know by God's grace they didn't, and of course those babies are running around right now, except they're not. I imagine they're not babies so much anymore. But I'm just saying, and there and that can be that kind of testimonial can be multiplied, 10,000 times by 10,000 times from people who have chosen to have the baby, even though a doctor said, "Hey, you really should just abort." So the mom may have been told that by a doctor, but but at the moment she's having that abortion, for sure her life is not in danger because she because the clinic wouldn't treat her there. They'd say go to the hospital at that moment they truly believed her life was in danger. They're not going to touch it. Um, but in these rare situations where it truly is there is a true danger to the life of the mother. Let's say let's just use the example ectopic pregnancy. That's an example where the baby attaches somewhere other than the uterus, usually within the oh gosh, what's obviously I'm not an anatomy expert, but usually within I think that's called the fallopian tubes. But somewhere outside of the uterus is the baby attaches somewhere outside the uterus, and then of course begins to do what babies do, and that's grow. And of course, in that situation, um, it's not just a danger. It is a threat to the mom's life, but the baby is also going to die. So in that case, like let's use that example. First of all, again, abortion clinics aren't going to touch ectopic pregnancy anyway. Um, and that's not you don't solve ectopic pregnancy by an abortion. You have to be you have to like there has to be like actual surgery done where they're cutting into the fallopian tube and taking that baby out and everything. But um, so it's just let's just say, let's even say like outside of ectopic pregnancy, let's just say in general, it's a situation where the mom's life truly is in danger. What happens is what happens is you go to the hospital and the doctors, whoever is involved in the care of that woman and the baby, they have two patients. They have two patients, and they're doing everything they can to preserve life for both patients. And if it then comes down to it, where the baby's going to die and the mom's going to die, and so they take the baby away or they take out the baby, whatever the case may be, that's not an abortion. Okay, that's not an abortion, and no one equated um, no, well, I can't say just universally no one, but you certainly, I never heard, and I mean, and all those I know who are very involved in this kind of work, never heard people equating um, ectopic pregnancy or other things where they're like the mom's life is actually in danger, um, with abortion, and like, and all of a sudden after Dobbs, right after Dobbs says, okay, it's back to the states, they need to decide. Now all of a sudden it's like that's all you hear now is, oh, you have to have abortion to save the life of the mother, but abortion is not done in situations where the mother's life is truly in danger, my friends. That's not an abortion. That's a whole different thing, and it's a situation where the doctors are treating two patients and they're doing everything they can to preserve the life of both patients. So it drives me nuts when I hear um, we need to keep abortion legal for these situations. No, that's not that's abortion is a completely separate thing than that thing. Okay, here we go. Let's keep going. Actually, I probably should. I should probably wrap up. I apologize because I think we heard like what, like 30 seconds of this video, and I just kind of talked the rest of the time. So I apologize for being such a blabbermouth, but I do want to work all the way through this video, which means in the future I'm just going to have to let larger chunks of the video play without interrupting. So, because I cannot see comments on here, I'm gonna get on my phone and just look and see if there's any comments. I really doubt it, but I just want to see if there's anything I need to respond to right now in the moment. So bear with me while I'm sure there's a way for people who know how to for people who know what they're actually doing with like technology. I'm sure there's a way to put like the comment thing up here on the screen with what I'm using. I'm using X. I think it's called X split, like the letter X and then split. And nope, there are no comments or anything like that. So I appreciate you guys watching. Again, please preferably consider joining with me and partner with me financially to be a full-time missionary here in Arizona, primarily in the area of abortion ministry. And there's a link in the description. So just that'll go to my funding page. Please consider clicking on that link and joining with me, guys. All right, I appreciate it. Again, thanks for watching. You guys have a wonderful day.